Not with me as always is our press gang, formerly known as the guy. He is currently too busy schmoozing down in Florida with all manner of celebrities. If anybody has seen, you'll probably get some extra pictures put up on Facebook or our Facebook page of Dallas schmoozing with the likes of Anderson Cooper and George Takei and an actress whose name I can't remember who was in Wicked. But the one that is with me this week is our social media czar, Fraser Belfort, DeffHeadDice on all things social media.
Good evening, everyone.
This is, oh my God, this is try number 3 to get a podcast recorded, I think. We're
Something like
just
that.
having terrible luck with technical issues and schedules not meeting up. We were gonna have Frank Wilkerson back on with us, Nasrik, for all those of you who remember the good times back when Frank was here, the rock of the podcast. But we still just haven't been able to make it happen. So instead, Fraser and I are going to ramble at you for close to an hour tonight, and then we're just going to put it on the internet because that's what we do. So you and I were talking before in the pre-show about the battle reporter, and you have that awesome little ELO chart. Now we're going to go ahead and throw this on the Facebook if he hasn't already for you guys to look at. Now, there's some really interesting information in here. Now, this is basically a weighted average system that allows you to see what the best warlock is by not just overall win percentage, but by this weighted average. First, you want to go into a little extra detail on that one?
Yeah, and just a bit of a caveat. This is data that was collected about 2, 3 weeks ago. We're using it in our beta testing. So because I haven't pushed people like crazy to keep entering it over the last month or so, it's not as fresh data as we'd like. But once we start getting this back into the public view, everyone will see it. So it'll give us more realistic numbers. But it basically, like Matt said, it takes the ELO, which is the weighted average. So you can see sometimes the win ratio looks high, but it actually, if you're only playing 3 or 4 games, it sort of skews your number. So it gives you that. Also, it lets you know how many players are playing it, how many unique players are playing the casters, which I thought was kind of a cool way of doing it as well. So we've got all the casters represented. There's some things we sort of expect. So we're seeing, for example, you're seeing Ragnar has a fairly actually low ELO. He's at 53 and 69. He's fairly low, which makes a bit of sense because a lot of people are playing him in the battle box. It isn't necessarily having as much luck with him that way, and a lot of people trying out the new casters. But I think Matt and I were talking about this earlier, and it's completely surprising. The number one caster, according to ELO, is Madrak 1.
Madrak freaking won, man. And like, you look at his win-loss, and it's not bad, actually. He's got 10 wins, 3 losses, and that's 13 games reported overall with 9 different players playing. So there's not the sample size isn't really as small as you would think for that to give him a skewed average so much. What's super surprising is that what most of us have basically deemed him as like the turd of this faction right now. He's just not. I don't believe he's very good, but I mean, the numbers don't lie, folks. The weighted average puts him up at the top. You guys should all pick him up right now.
Yeah, there you go. Go dust off the old battle box for Mark II, and there you go. The one thing too is the more games we get in this, we'll get a better reflection. But just so people who don't have access to the Facebook page right now, so the casters in order are Madrak 1 at 10 and 3, Grim 2 at 13 and 7, Gunbjorn at 25 and 18, which actually makes a bit of sense based on the stuff of people I've seen him playing. Doomy 2 at 26 and 19. Jarl, our buddy Jarl at 8 and 4. Calandra 1 at 23 and 18. Doomy 3 at 10 and 7. I was kind of surprised there wasn't as many more people playing Doomy 3, to be honest. Gristle 2, Matt's new girlfriend, is at 12 and 9.
Yeah.
Madrak 2, and this one shouldn't come as a surprise, is at 84 and 87. So slightly less than a 50% win rate. Gristle 1 at 9 and 8. Borka 1, Ragnar, Borka 2, and then lowly Doomy 1 at the bottom at 10 and 17.
Oh man, when people pick Doomy 1 back up and you realize how bonkers he is, like, you just got to learn to play a little safe with him and don't die and build your army just right. And that guy is going to freaking wreck house.
Oh, of course.
Like, it's going to be kind of crazy. Like, I don't think people understand how good his spell list is. Like, I think his spell list is probably second best in faction, only behind Calandra. who has easily the best spell list.
Yeah, I'd
So
agree with that. And I think people almost went away from Doomy 1 because you lost Runes of War, so they wanted to see what else can happen. I think we're going to see a shift back to
Well, I 100% support list diversity. Go out there, figure out what works in your meta, what you like to play, what could work in this meta. Do that, and it's going to take a little while for people to shake out what's actually good and what they like. And again, I think that there are a few casters that you're going to see after like the dust has settled, like the end of this tournament season in November when what is it, War Machine Weekend is, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So in November, after War Machine Weekend, you'll see what the popular lists are for trolls. You'll see what people are bringing, what's successful, and what people have decided is going to work for the meta. And then you're going to see some more list building after that. And then there's the dark times up until the end of February when we start getting cons again. And there's going to be some interesting list discussion happening in the meantime. I really hope that we can foster some really interesting list design out of that. And I think Doomy is one of the ones who's primed to take a front seat there. Doomshaper 3 also still seems very strong. I'm not certain if because he sort of competes for a similar slot to Ragnar, that's probably why you're not really seeing his presence that much right now. Furthermore, you're not seeing a lot of him, I think, because he was like really good right away in Mark III, and then everybody just went straight back to playing EE and Runes of War because they were the consistent ones that handled most of the meta. So we'll see what's happening there. But I think, like I said, I think that you're going to see some diamonds in the rough start to poke out. She's primed to take the meta right now. Like, she is so good. I think her, Doomy 1, and Grim 2 are going to be the shiny diamonds that you're not really seeing right yet. And you're seeing it a little bit with Grim with his win rate, and that does not surprise me at all because Grim 2 is freaking crazy good.
Yeah.
Like, being able to just shoot your opponent all day and having an amazing feat and having a damage debuff that you can cast twice is pretty good.
Yep, absolutely.
Pretty good.
And we should hopefully be seeing this the full version of the battle reporter, which has the fancy graphs and everything. We're hopefully doing the beta testing starting next week, I think, and then we'll be moving into a going full live with it. So replacing the Google form with this new one, and then we're looking at adding features like being able to actually store your own games. So you're not only just giving us your information, but you can look at your own stats. And then we're eventually branching into some tournament tools as well, so people can use this when they're doing tournament stuff. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff lined up, which I'd like to get. We'll get the guy who's helping us out, Ziggy Kubert, to come on and talk about this. And once we've got it ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Now, what's the traction on the app currently?
Right now, last update we have it's an Android app. It's supposed to be done. I think he's getting it signed this week. I pretend that I know what this means. I'm assuming it's something to do with getting it officialized from Google, but it's basically like a wrapper. So they're taking the code from the website and wrapping it up. So it's not a full defined app. It's more of just taking the web code and just repurposing it. But we're hoping to have that as part of the beta next week, is the last update I had. And then we're going to get the ISO version to follow shortly afterwards. Just our Charles, the guy that's helping us with that, he's a licensed Apple developer. I don't think he hasn't used his account in like 4 years. He has to figure out how to do it. So it may take a little bit of time for him to figure that out. But once he's got it in place, we'll get both those up and running. So they'll be able to do it on the website as well as the phones, the Apple and the Androids. Someone asked me if we're going to do a BlackBerry version because I live in Waterloo and the home of BlackBerry, but we said no, not going to happen. So the only thing I would recommend, if you do want to look at the stats, looking at it on a phone is a bit of a pain. So using a tablet or using just a web browser is probably the best bet to look at the stats, because you can get very granular. You can break things down. Actually, I'm kind of curious. Let's just while on the fly, I'm going to look at the skill level for this, because we broke one of the questions in the battle reporter is your skill level: novice, intermediate, veteran, or top tier. What do we want to sort them by? What do we want to look at, Goris? Do we want to look at by veteran, intermediate? What group do you want to look at to see if the skill?
Let's check veteran.
Veteran. Okay, so we'll go into veteran. So the numbers drop a little bit, down from 330 games played to 61 games played, but that really bumps Madrak up into Madrak 2 into number 1 at 13-7. Grim 2 second at 7-3, Borka 1 at 10-6, Doomy 2 at 8 and 5, and then Gunbjorn at 9 and 7, Kalandra at 6 and 4, and then Borka 2 at 2 and 0. And almost everyone else is undefeated. So, although ironically, Ragnar, even with the veteran players, is 3 and 11.
See, that's interesting to me. Like the veteran players seeing better win rates for those things doesn't surprise me at all.
Yep.
Mostly because just because they're veteran doesn't mean they're getting games always against those type of people.
Agreed.
So they're having more success against people who are not necessarily as skilled as they are. I really, I wonder if there's a way that we can have a field to say whether or not the game was tournament or if it was casual.
There was. We can sort by that as well. What game type do you want to select? Do you want to select tournament or casual? We will do local tournament or regional tournament.
Let's do local.
Local tournament. Oh, by the way, we have the WTC results in here right now as well, because that was there was an easy way to import that. So when we do tournaments, there's 12 results, to which Grim 1. That's interesting how I guess it's the number of people play. No, there we go. So Grim 2 is 2 and 0. Madrak 2 is 3 and 2. Gunbjorn is 2 and 1. Gristle 2 is 1 and 0. Doomy 2 is 1 and 1. Borka is 1 and 2, and then Kalandra, Madrak 1, and Ragnar are all 0 and 1 for local tournament. And the way that you can add them, you can actually compare the skill levels too, so you can see if it's what level the player is played against, because when you put in your opponent's results, you get their skill level as well. So we can you can really dive deep into see some of the statistics. So, and this is all available currently in the CSV sheet if you want to go diving into the details directly, which you can find on the WMHBattleReporter.com is where the Google form is right now, and there's information on how to get the CSV file.
I can dig it. Lots of cool stuff in there. We keep harping on it because we love it so much. Honestly, it's just a really interesting tool to sort of see where we are as far as a faction goes.
And comparing how we're doing against other factions too, which is kind of cool as well. But anyways, we've gone on long enough.
So, in the news, a lot of you are probably talking about the Madrak 3 sculpt and his mostly painted form that we've been seeing on the internet, who looks freaking awesome. I've heard that his release is actually scheduled for December, if that's correct.
That is correct.
Oh man, I can't wait to get my hands on him. It's gonna be so freaking awesome. So, in addition to that, though, we had a little bit of a splash on social media today. It looks like somebody posted, and I believe it was our very own Devin, Devonian Mar there, who posted in the TrollbloodScrum Facebook group, the partially painted partially painted full Warlock Horgel Ironstrike. What do they call him? Horgel the Anvil, I think is what he was called.
Awesome name.
Yes, it's gonna be awesome. I mean, it really hits home. Like I think what they want to drive about his character is that, you know, he was a support warlock before because he was just a junior, and now he's full fledged and he's ready to go and pound you into the dirt with his anvil. The sculpt is gorgeous. If you haven't seen it already, go over to that Facebook group, take a look. I mean, he's just got this beautiful action pose. It's way more dynamic than a lot of the older ones used to be, or even his other sculpt. And I think it's just going to be really, really interesting coming into the Forces book when we'll be able to see what we got, what goodies we have, and I cannot wait. What do you think of the model?
Oh, I think it looks gorgeous. The only thing I have to do is I got to find a good photo reference so when I paint the fire, it actually looks good, because I'm kind of scared that I won't do it justice because it just looks gorgeous. So
fire is pretty difficult. I mean, as a painter, I don't do a whole lot of like two brush blending. I do single brush blending and I do dry brushing. Mm-hmm. Dry brushing fire is pretty easy way to attain a really decent looking fire. But if you're trying to do it your level of fire, it's going to be difficult, and yeah, getting it the right touch is going to be hard.
Yeah. Well, there was one of the guys who's painters in the area, he actually posted a video of some flamethrower guys, the guys that do the breathing fire video, and it actually I'm gonna steal some of that for the technique for the fire eaters, which I think I'll just apply to this one as well. So I'm saving up all the fire I need to do in one time. So I'll do my fire eaters, I'll do Horrigal, I'll probably redo my pyre trolls as well and get them all done at the same time, and then just be done with it. So, but no, the model looks gorgeous, and it will be available at War Machine Weekend, so those going down there can pick it up there. But also, thankfully, it's also going to be available in the Privateer Press store, so you can order it online, and you get that fancy pin, and the over packaging apparently came in like the War Machine ones did. So, but it'll be good to be able to grab that, even if you're not local and you can't make it down to the event. You know you can get it, and I'm hoping we'll see some spoilers soon because we saw some of the Circle spoilers today. Some of the pieces, so I'm kind of curious if we'll start seeing some of the troll ones later on this week. Fingers crossed.
Definitely, definitely. All right, so outside of that, and I'm super excited. Is let's go ahead and move on to the hobby section. So I actually just recently got off Amazon a couple of the Windsor and Newton Series 7 brushes. So I finally picked up a miniature and I started painting. And my God, what a difference it is from just the local hobby shop that I got my old stuff from. Like the brushes are 100% better in about every way.
It's
Like
amazing. It's amazing. I picked up one in the summer, and it's like night and day difference. I was blown away the quality difference, just the feel of it and everything was a huge difference compared. I use the Army Painter brushes, and I love those brushes, but this one is just again night and day difference.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, not only that, but I mean, so the reservoir on it is excellent. It holds paint really well. It doesn't dry out quite as fast. Like it goes on much more evenly. The bristles don't tend to fray or move very much. I mean, even after several different colors and uses and and washes and things like that. I was impressed overall with what I got, and I'm excited to get started painting again because I know I'll have consistent brushes to use, and I hope that it will help. It'll translate into a little bit of a better painting job for me, but I think that's more going to be about the amount of time that I put in
Yeah,
than just
it's always about
brushes
the
quality.
practice.
Yeah, brushes quality.
Now, did you
What
pick
have
up
you been?
you picked up the brush soap as well for it, right? So you can clean them
I
properly.
have actually my wife's a painter, so I've had brush soap since
Good,
quite a long time. So
good.
yeah, that stuff's great.
Well,
All right, so what have you been working on?
I've been working on the fire eaters, just getting some of the browns and some of the I've been working on the fur, just trying a technique that I like with the fur. Not quite there yet. I was doing like a really light, almost like it was at the like almost like a bone color, and then I washed with like a ruddy brown ink just to see if I can get some of that into the areas and brought it back up. But I'm I don't have enough time to do it properly, so I find I rush through it, then I do a bad job, and then I have to start over again. So I have to sort of slow myself down or find a better technique for doing fur. So if anyone has a good technique for doing fur, throw it into the Facebook page, and I will gladly take a look at it and see if that improves it. But other than that, I haven't had much time to paint because I went to a tournament last weekend. What about you?
Which I'm sure we're going to talk about.
Yeah. Spoilers.
So, with the fur, have you tried? Like, I mean, I know you're already doing the wash section. Have you thought about doing like a 2 or 3 step glazing process? So, like, sort of trying to build your glaze up from the crevices, like make it a little bit thicker so that it doesn't tend to stand in the crevices, and you can just build it layer by layer.
I think that's almost the approach I have to take because I like having the darker color underneath, and I've been looking at some fur examples, like either other painted miniatures or things in real life. But it's just a matter of finding the colors I want to like to it, and it's again it's a balance between wanting to look really good and not having to spend 3-4 hours just painting one piece of fur. So it's just that intermediate where I have to find out where my comfort or my tolerance level is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and to quote a friend of mine, Tim Black, who's a phenomenal painter. If you've seen his White Convergence, his Stormhammer, the Scorn he did, all of his stuff is super awesome. He's a great painter. Washes and glazes can make an easy, awesome looking paint job in a very short period of time with a lot less work than two brush blending. So definitely don't shy away from that type of technique, and you'll get some pretty awesome results, I think.
Yeah, I know glazing can often pull those colors together so much nicer because it just sort of smooths it all out. So you can have a sharper contrast, but have that glaze sort of bring it in the middle. So
Yep, definitely a technique that I like. All right, so let's go ahead and move into let's do games played. I'll let you go ahead and start out with your tournament last weekend, while I mull over how to explain the miraculousness of my wins at
Okay, no pressure. So,
I-5.
last weekend we had I even forget the name of it. It's a tournament. It was a miniature wargaming convention down in Brantford, Ontario, which is just west of Toronto. They do a lot of historical miniatures. They had BattleTech games going on. I don't remember the last time I saw BattleTech being played on a table. But they had, and this is the first year they had a War Machine tournament. So our local press ganger here, where I live, up in Waterloo, Kitchener area, went down there to set that all up. And so we had, I think it was about 28 people at this event. A lot of there few. I think there was one of the Canadian WTC guys came out, but it was a fun event. And so I went in wanting to do at least somewhat well. So my two lists, I brought my Madrak two list, which we talked about here. I actually made some slight tweaks to it. I dropped my warders down from a max unit to a min unit. I took out the Pyre Troll and replaced them with a Mauler, and also was able to put in a Chronicler. So I was able to get some of the stuff we talked about, having the Chronicler give following behind the Fen Blades to give them a little bit more safety with concealment and from the Tales of Mist. So that was my one list. My second list, I actually stole your list, the one we talked about in our chat before. So it's
Excellent.
a Gristle 2 list, and Gristle 2 had Fen Blades, a War Wagon, the Mountain King, and what else was there in there? There was the Chronicler, which again we talked about. You originally had the Kithkar in it, but I dropped it for the Chronicler, Minstone with the UA, and I think that was it between the Mountain King. And some whelps. So that was what I brought for that. So was feeling pretty confident, but I was looking to win two games. That was my goal. So if I can win two games, be happy. So my first round was against Circle. I played Greg from Party Foul, for those who know the Party Foul website. He had Wormwood and Kruger won.
Oh God.
He was convinced I was going to drop Madrak too. And it was the scenario where you had the two flags, and I don't remember the names. I'm horrible with this. The two flags on like 18 inches up and 16 inches in or whatever.
Outflank, I think, is what it
Yeah,
is.
so it was that. So I figured I could probably get the Mountain King into one side of the zone and just be able to annoy him with the War Wagon. So I dropped Gristle 2, which he said he was really surprised about that. In the end, it was a pretty tight game. He had a bunch of the birds that annoyed the heck out of the War Wagon, which basically tied them up for the longest time. And he had some bad dice as well. But in the Mountain King was able to get some work done. In the end, he had and this is why I need to make better notes when I do these things. There's the Circle solo that has Grievous Wounds. So he was trying to get Grievous Wounds on the Mountain King, wasn't able to, so I was able to heal the Mountain King on my next turn.
Nice.
Basically, put Kruger one in a position where I could throw something at him to knock him down, and then I could have sent Gristle up to shoot him, and then send the few remaining Fen Blades in to kill him on and be able to basically take the game.
Yeah.
I opted to try to throw the beast, which was a little bit further away, instead of the small guy in front of me, because I was fixating on throwing the beast. Of course, because of the beast wasn't quite far, was a little bit too far away to be able to hit this caster. If I'd made the choice of picking up the small model and throwing it, I probably would have won the game. But because I didn't, I made a poor choice. I basically lost the game because of that. So that was just me getting fixating on one model and thinking I want to get this beast out of the way, and so I wound up losing on scenario at that point. So um,
Yeah, that's rough. And you forget too that like the list has knockdown tech that's not just Gristle and the War Wagon.
yep,
That is a super good technique with the Mountain King because like being able to use that mat 6 to fucking just knock a thing down is awesome. Not only that, but most of your models are large base. But against Kruger or Wormwood, it doesn't matter, or
yep,
Kruger for that matter. It doesn't matter because you just throw a whelp at him, and the whelp just knocks his ass down.
yep.
So
Again, I will always remember that going forward, especially since the one model, the circle model, the small one that was in front of me, I would have had a straight line, so I wouldn't even had to roll for it. I would have hit him automatically because it was straight line. So it was just me fixating on the wrong model. So again, took that one away. I'll learn from next time. So my next, do you want to go into your first game or do you want to go me to plow through mine?
We can do that. Actually, yeah, let's alternate. But one thing I also want to remember is that if it is a straight line directly away,
Mhm.
you can also power strike that model and remove the second attack roll, right? So you power strike the original model, boosting hit. It's slammed D6 plus 3 inches away, which means you're very likely to get the model there. I mean, almost 9 inches away. That's basically the same threat range. How far away was he?
He was at the max of what my throw could have been. So I
Okay, so
wouldn't
he
have been
was
able.
going to be that full 7.5 inches.
Yeah. Well, I had rage up as well to be able to make that extra distance. So I had him up to 22.
Oh wow.
So I had to. So I think he was right at the max. Like I wouldn't have been able to do it unless I had unless I had rage up. So
Understood. Okay, that makes sense then. But I mean, another useful piece of tech with the Mountain King Power Strike is fucking awesome, especially when you have zone control and they don't have a lot of good places to push in and can't kill your Mountain King. You're just like, okay, you get to get out of the zone now, punch, and then it's
yeah,
gone.
that's
Or
good.
punching stuff through the lines, like even just punching your own dudes through a bunch of small base stuff
Hmm.
is awesome. Like it's super, super good. Legit tech. Love it. God, the Mountain King's so good right now.
Oh yes, can't complain.
Okay, so that model, like when I play with that model, it gives me a huge sense of confidence. Like I put it on the table and I'm like, they're gonna have a really hard time killing this, and it's gonna eat two of whatever the fuck they put in front of it. So I love having that sense of dominance over the board. Like it makes me feel super confident that I'm gonna do well in the game. So I love that he's viable in this meta right now. It's fucking amazing.
My
All right.
only my only issue with him is I have to make sure I don't place him in a bad place because a couple times I actually gave away the Mountain King when I really shouldn't have. So that's just me learning placement and understanding my threats a little bit better. But we'll talk about that in the next game because my next game was actually much better than that one. So
Yeah, another one of those things you got to worry about with him too. Since he's your only beast, you got to not remember to not load him up during crucial turns when Bristle's going to be in a little bit of danger. Um, and she's not completely unkillable. She's hard, but you need to make sure you got those transfer targets open, and most of the time that's enough to dissuade the opponent from trying to go after her. I mean,
exactly.
15, 19 all the time's pretty good.
Yeah.
The only thing
Oh
that
yeah.
I would ask for is later on in list building, I might try to find a way to fit an Earthborn or a Bouncer in the list. Just no knockdown, no stationary is really strong for her. Like it makes it really safe to keep her far forward because she's just so stout. All right, so during the I-5, my first game was going to be against Kador. His lists were Butcher 1 Shooty Feet list, and then he also had the Harkovich and like a fucking shit ton of jacks, like 8 jack list.
Oh,
Um,
jeez.
so I think I sort of gamed myself a little bit here because I expected him to put Madrak into or uh, put the Harkovich list down, thinking that he's going to be able to live through Madrak and keep me out of zones and all that stuff. Because that list is deceptively fast. Like they're actually not that slow with Harkovich, so it makes it pretty difficult to get board presence. And so I anticipated Madrak, thinking that I could actually outspeed him and then outdamage him. And then he drops Butcher into me, and I drop Madrak. So it was a pretty even match for the most part. I had taken control of a scenario and already scored a point on turn, basically his resulting turn 2 as I went first or second. And so things started to get a little crazy and a lot more aggressive. So I started posturing forward a lot. Now, he committed Ruin to contest the zone and to remove some harder targets up front. But one of the best things was in that game, I was able to flank super hard with my long riders, and I tied up Behemoth. And I basically tied up his Behemoth all game. Like, Behemoth shot nobody basically all game. And he had to commit significant resources to clear long riders off in order to get shots. And even then, it was not high value stuff because of where he was positioned. So I got a lot of value on that flank, and it's actually probably what kept me in the game with the damage that he could do with his feet. So it comes down to it. Turn 3, I have to get my legs up on the board, and I have to give my army a way to seriously contest the board without getting completely overrun by the feet. So I commit my feet, non-optimally, but commit nonetheless, and then I get Ruin with Mulg. And I'm sitting in a pretty safe position. I'm sitting where I'm unfortunately not engaged anymore because I killed the model that I was engaging, and I'm still under stone. So after the fact, I sort of anticipate that he's going to feat to try and kill Mulg. And I'm kind of fine with that because Madrak, wherever Butcher could land, Madrak was going to be within charge range of. I would have had all my theory back. I would have had all my resources available to me. I could have had Flaming Fist, all of that, and the stone for that matter. So I'm not going to blame it on dice, as my opponent played pretty well outside of the dice spike. But the way I mathed it out in my head, Butcher probably had to spend at least 3 Fury to kill Mulg on average dice. And at that point, everything went out the window when he rolled 21 damage on the charge.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, so that was pretty bad, and he only needed 1 focus to kill Mulg. That's how stupid.
Ooh, yeah, that's not good.
So then I'm in the tank at this point, and I'm like, okay, Madrak has to spike on every roll to kill Butcher. And then I start to go into scenario zone, and I'm like, how am I going to get all this shit cleared out? And so I start going through the motions, and I'm like, okay, scenario is the only way I win this, or clock is the only way I win this. So I come down to it. I keep everything out of the right zone. I start to clear everything out of the zone there. I keep my Pyro Troll close enough to the zone to contest, and he's got Kayazi on that side. They haven't mini-feeded yet, so I'm kind of wary of them, but they don't really kill a Pyro Troll too easily. So he's over there, and if I hit him, they're on fire anyway, so that basically solves the problem for me. So we're kind of at a stalemate there. But that also means that I can't bring my Pyro Troll over to contest or to make it easy for Madrak to get buffs and things like that. So it's kind of a strange stalemate. And then eventually it just comes down to he jams me up, and I apparently can't roll 6s to save my life. And I couldn't hit any of his Kayazi. I couldn't hit anything. So I couldn't clear zones, and I couldn't get enough scenario points before the clock started to go. So I ended up losing on scenario in that particular game. Lesson to me is, again, I don't know what happened when I took so much time off, but I'm not playing as aggressive as I used to play. And I think I just need to go back to being aggressive to a fault in a way with trolls. Like I think it just puts your opponent on such a back foot that being that aggressive is just beneficial to you, especially when people aren't necessarily sure of like what your plan is or how you're going to do it. But hey, all my shit's up here. You better try and kill it, otherwise I'm going to just wreck your army.
Yep.
So I think that's going to be my goal going forward. Not only that, but my opponent positioned very well. Like, he knew exactly how far he needed to be away from each model so the Madrak could not surf. He didn't anticipate Mold surfing, which is why he lost Ruin. Otherwise, I think his positioning was pretty epic, or pretty acceptable for the whole game. That being said, it was a good learning experience for me, and it's actually one of the reasons why I think I'm going to shelve Madrak for a while until the meta's sort of done with him.
Understood. And I think Madrak, like we've talked about before, good players can put the spacing, so it makes it easier it makes it harder for us to be able to get a good effective feat. And I actually saw that as well in my game as well. My game 4, I ran into pretty much that exact same issue. But so nope, I had a point. It's gone. So I'll jump into my round 2. So my round 2 was against Colin. It was against another Trollblood player, and he had brought Gunbjorn and Doomy 2. Now he had just come back into the game. He'd been out of the game for a couple years, and decided to come back with the trolls, which I said that was a good choice. So he dropped Gunbjorn. His Gunbjorn had a Dozer and Spig, a Mountain King, a bomber, and then was a min unit of stone and the UA, and I think he had the Rune Bear as well. Now, this is one of those games where great guy to play against. You could tell he'd been out of the game for a while. Like, he kept his stone right up in distance. I dropped Madrak 2 into this list. He basically, his poor positioning, and basically led me to make my way through his list. I brought the Long Riders because I love the Long Riders, just running them up the flank as a distraction, and he dedicated way too much to those guys and letting my Fen Blades come up and basically come down the middle and just basically tear them apart. He, much like your comment is, but you were playing aggressive enough. I took a page from your book and I basically threw everything at him, right, almost right down the middle, and he didn't know how to deal with it and able to handle it. So it was a fairly easy victory for me, but I gave him a bunch of pointers on how to maybe position a little bit better and to keep some of the support guys not in the front line, because it made it easy just to chew through all of his guys when he leaves the stone in front of the Mountain King and in front of the bomber, which didn't make a lot of sense to me, and said, this is probably the way to do it. So, oh, he had the Dunian knot as well. So forgetting to put the puppet strings onto, or puppet master onto his shooting beast until after they've shot. So little things where it's like, okay, this is probably not going to work out well for you, but really nice guy, and I think we're going to have another game again soon, hopefully, since he's a good friend of one of the local players here, Alex. So, but in the end, I think it was more of a learning game for him than for me. But for me, it was just I was happy with my placement. I didn't give him much choice. I didn't give him. I gave him too many target choices where he wasn't able to figure out what he wanted, and my placement on the Fen Blades I was really good. I was really comfortable with, and was able to go in and assassinate him fairly easily.
Yeah, that seems good. And you know what? Honestly, that's a sportsmanship thing. Like, being a good sport at a tournament is probably the best way to play things. Like,
Yep.
I'm a very open person as far as information goes. Not only that, but if somebody wants some feedback or wants to talk about the match, we have enough time, I will 100% be like, hey, we could have done this better, or what did you think when this happened, or were you anticipating me doing this, And especially with guys like that, where you're actually investing in your own meta. You're investing in that person because you want them to play with you. So it's just a good thing to go.
Yeah, and again, I've been on the receiving end of that. Like on my game one, I talked to Greg afterwards, and he was the one who pointed out this is what you should have done. And if people ask me when I win, I do the same thing. You're right. It's just if you have the opportunity to share where your insight, it just helps the people get better. Your opponents get better for the next time.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so my second game, I played against Scorn, and so this time I was a little sour on Madrak, and the opponent had Hexeris 2, and I believe it was Rasheth.
Okay.
Now, Madrak can deal with Rasheth's list pretty hard, but so I think he was sort of anticipating me dropping dudes into him, and so that's why he picks Hexeris 2, and then I ended up dropping Gristle, which turned out to be pretty good for me. He didn't have a whole lot of range. He did have a Cannoneer, he had 2 Gladiators, and I believe that Agonizer, not necessarily new, the one that's a beast now instead of the one that's a beast now rather than a solo.
Solo, yeah.
Yes. And so the match goes pretty shaky for him. He's got a fair amount of ranged elements in the list. He's got the slingers. He's got the the guys with the flame guns, the big shooty Satrati guys. I can't remember. No, not the Arcari. Gosh, you don't see them.
I'm no help with the scoring. I'm going to do the exact same thing when I describe my scoring game, so I can't help you at all.
Yeah, at any rate, the list was sort of all over the place, but it was definitely meant to deal with dudes. Like that is what it was supposed to do. So the one thing that it was not very good at though was it's not fast, and so I ended up going first in this match, and my Fenblades were able to pressure super hard. I don't think he anticipated the mini feat being as effective as it was, but more than just the attacks that I got to make were just the models that were engaged. I managed to engage most of his range models and didn't allow him to use them for shooting. In addition to that, he had the new I think they're solos or whatever. They're pain giver dudes that are like super high defense and they do anti-combat precision and stuff like that. I can't remember what they're called. They're very annoying in their AD, and I had to deal with those in a way. It just so happens though that the Finblade Kit Car is a boss at taking those guys out because he's Mat 9 on the charge.
Yes.
And so pretty good there, and they were only a minor annoyance. Basically what happened is the War Wagon and the Mountain King and Gristle just ran the table. I knocked things down with impunity. I ran the table and forced him into trying to assassinate Gristle on turn 4 because I used my feat to run and engage, and then forced him to pull Titans into me.
Okay.
And yeah, so there's that. I ended up killing a Titan, not engaging the other, and then basically I knocked down or killed all of his support and the solos in the back. Like I got the Tycom, I got two pain givers, I got half his unit of the AOE flame guys. Like the War Wagon was just doing work all game, and he didn't have hardly any answer for it. And so it forced him to go for a pretty creative assassination. Gristle had 4 Fury on her, and the Mountain King wasn't loaded up. So what he did was, I apparently, and without knowing, mispositioned my Fenblade drummer to be in direct line of sight of the Titan. So he went over, picked it up, and then threw it at Gristle, knocking her down.
Oh wow.
This was bad. Now the part that saved me though is the Mountain King was behind a wall, which meant that anything attacking over it still giving them +2. So he's a mighty defense 11. Yeah. He charges. Oh, sorry. The Mountain King had 3 Fury on it. So he charges in 2 Pain Givers to try and load him up on Fury. He connects with the first one, puts one on, and then rolls a lowly 4 on the die to miss the Mountain King over a wall. So I'm still there. I have 4 transfers. He goes for the Hellfire Assassination, doesn't connect, and then I basically just eat his entire list, score 5 control points, and win the game.
Nice.
I don't think my opponent was anticipating the drop, and I don't think he fully understood what Gristle could do. Like I even at one point just laid down 3 Scather templates to see if he wanted to have see if he wanted to take 3 PAL 12s when he moved a Titan through. And this is actually a tactic that I did that I did later in the next game that we'll talk about. So that was fun. Gristle's super fun. She shoots shit off the table. It's great. Please, people, play her. All right, go ahead with your game.
No, just to follow up on your shooting, because that was the one thing I had trouble with, because she's 8 inches, only got an 8 inch range on her gun, and you don't have anything to give her far strike. Did you find that? I mean, you have to play her fairly aggressively as well, don't you? Like, did you keep
A
her?
fair bit, but that's the thing. Like with the 2 huge bases, especially with the War Wagon having reposition, you have a really good way to block line of sight after you put her exposed. And the War Wagon's range means he can cover half the table without you really giving up any of his threat range, right?
True.
So what you can do is you can advance up 4 or 5, and then back up 3, and then go right in front of Gristle. Or what you've done is you've killed anything that's in potential threat range of her, or knocked it all down, or what have you, and then you just, even if she's 8 inches threat, you're using her to kill something big or something scary that you're worried about killing her. So knocking it down first with her, killing with the Mountain King, or knocking down with the War Wagon and then killing with her, like you'll sort of get a sense of how your opponent wants to try and threaten her when you start to move her forward. But with her, like you want to put 1 on the stone, keep 3 Fury, cast Deflection, and just let your opponent try and shoot her at defense 17. Yeah, right. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that's been my issue is I've been keeping the War Wagon almost on the flank, where I maybe should be running him right up more about the middle.
Honestly, like I kind of play the rule of thirds with this. Like it's basically Gristle's in the middle, Mountain King or a War Wagon on either side of her, and then they just run those sides of the table. Like they're your threats. Not only that, but they're pretty much equidistant from the stone at this point, which means that they're always under the order, which means you can get the maximum amount out of the feet.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those lists that doesn't need to be tricky about the flanks. It basically just needs to present threat in those parts of the board to exert control over the table, because each one of those pieces can do all of that. Gristle's 3 shots just right up the center of the board, she will just kill whatever's in their way.
Oh, absolutely.
She doesn't even have to kill it all. If it's infantry that they're trying to get to her, just leaving 3 Scather templates somewhere in that area in front of her is usually dissuasion enough for a lot of things. Solos even don't want to walk through that.
Nope.
I mean, you can spike a dice and kill a really valuable high HP solo.
Exactly.
So there's a lot that she can do, and with Rate of Fire 3 the way it is, like without having to spend to get the extra shots, she can just push shit down range with impunity.
Yep.
And while there might be consideration for putting Snipe in the list later on down the line, I think that it sits in a pretty good place right now based on its board presence, good range presence, and the speed of the models in front.
Yep, agreed. Okay. So going on to my game 3, I played Scorn as well. I played into, and I apologize, I can't remember my opponent's name. He dropped Motorcar 1 and brought Void Spirits. Now, I don't like Void Spirits. I've had nothing but bad experience with these damn things. And apparently no one plays Scorn, so no one knows what that to do. So Mordekar's um, um, elite cadre is friendly Void Spirit models gain Killing Spree. So when a model with Killing Spree destroys one or more enemy model with melee attack, during its combat action, it gets an additional, after that attack is resolved, it can advance up to 1 inch and then get an additional melee. Plus he can teleport as well after he kills something. So the secret is to make your tough rolls. That apparently is the secret I wasn't able to do anything remotely close to. And he just killed my back line. Like he seriously in 2 turns he killed off most of my stone, most of my knot. Like he just destroyed it. And it was so much of a distraction where I couldn't focus on what was happening in front of me. This is the only game I played all Saturday where I felt like I was off-footed the entire game because I saw the Void Spirits coming in. I didn't have much. I mean, Gristle could shoot them and take out, but he had them on one down the far right flank and the other one coming in, and then he had the beast that can create the new ones. I forget the name of the beast. Um, Thank you, Defiler. So and they basically brought in another one. So I was off-footed, and I dropped Gristle too. In hindsight, with the amount of troops that he had on this list, I should have dropped Madrak. And
What was his other list?
I don't remember what his other list was. He said he wasn't going to play it anyways, regardless of what, because he'd already played that list twice because it was game three and we had to play it. So
So it's kind of locked in.
he was playing in regardless. He wasn't locked, but he wanted to play this one regardless. He didn't matter. He said it didn't matter what I dropped or what he thought I was going to drop. He was going to play
Oh
the
God.
same thing. So
You know, and I hate to say it, but sometimes when your opponent just like gifts you with all of this information, you
yeah,
should just take it and run with it. Um, but yeah, Madrak sounds like he would have been the better option. Void spirits are incorporeal, right?
they are.
So you can't damage them. I mean, it just didn't really matter that much that you dropped Gristle into it. It sucks that after they hit combat, that they're kind of stuck if they're not inside the Stone's aura.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna have a hard time getting rid of them because Gristle's the only one who can do it, and she honestly doesn't have anything but her range attacks now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a pain. Um, Man, it's tough to say without actually seeing the gameplay out on the table. I mean, if I were you, I probably would have just like fed him the fucking Fen Blades and then put your hard to kill shit in the way,
Yeah.
and then just that he gave you an avenue to just shoot his warlock to death, or let him chew on your Mountain King all day. Once the voice spirits are stuck on a Mountain King, even if they're incorporeal, like the stone starts to take care of that naturally over the time.
Yeah.
So it's like you probably could have just done one of these, bricked up in the center with like the war wagon will just walk out, shoot, walk back, and then have the Mountain King walk in and close the gap between Gristle. So you just basically just trod up the board with high armor, shooting whatever you want and just killing everything with the Mountain King.
Again, even if I made a few tough checks, I would have been okay. But it wasn't even able to pull those off. So, because
I mean, dice are dice, and that'll happen.
Yeah, exactly. So, no, it was a great game, fun opponent, and he just moved in for the area from Calgary. So it was we got to talk about one of the stores I know. Buddy of mine used to work at one of those stores out in Sentry Box in Calgary. So, but it was a fun game. But yeah, it was the only one I felt really off-footed the entire game with those damn Void Spirits. So when those get errated, I will not be upset. So, so what was your what was your game three?
So my game three ended up being against Menoff. My opponent dropped Resnick 2. He had 2 Sanctifiers, which are the ones with the weird-looking mace things that look like the religious symbol, the ones that gather souls.
Yep.
And then the Blessing of something. I can't remember what it was. The one with the sword who has Purgation, who really hates it when you have upkeeps and shit on you, and it's really annoying. Then the list also had it had 2 units of Choir in it, 2 Vassals, Rovan and Co., the Visigoth, and a Sunburst crew, and what else was there? God, there was not a lot in that list. I don't remember. Idrians, the Idrian, who are really fucking good now. By the way, I didn't realize how good they were.
Oh yeah.
At any rate, drop Gristle 2 into it. Feeling pretty good. He doesn't have a whole lot of armor crack and not a lot of buffs for the Jackson. The Sanctifier basically maxes out at 18 with God, +1/+1 battle on the choir. So I was feeling pretty good about that. Like I felt like I could weather basically all three of his jacks coming into me if I didn't feed him any models.
Hmm.
So I ended up deploying most of the way that I normally do. He had two of his Sanctifiers on one side, and then I put the War Wagon over there on the other side of them, and then Mountain King on the left, right across from Resnick, and Gristle in front. And the game plays out like it normally goes. I actually go first for once, and so the Fenblades get like way the fuck up there, and I feed him 2 or 3, hoping that he'll trigger Vengeance, which he does. He feels like removing the models isn't going to give him more board pressure.
Hmm.
It does not. So the Fenblades next turn they Vengeance. I even have the Kithkar in such a place where he gets the Righteous Vengeance.
Oh,
So
nice.
everything moves up. And then Fenblades charge in. I kill half, if not almost, I think 3/4 of his Idrians. I engage his back line. I engage some support, and I engage his jacks at this point. So I'm feeling really confident. I move Gristle and the Mountain King and the War Wagon up super close or super far in the scenario zone. I feet and I basically let him try and put all of his shit into me, which he does. So both jacks go into the Mountain King, and the Sanctifier goes into the War Wagon, and they don't. He doesn't kill anything. Like I think I lose most of my Fenblades, but the Mountain King just eats all his whelps, and then I get to live the dream, and I killed 2 jacks in a turn.
Oh, nice.
And then it's basically down to the Sanctifier that's just chewing on the War Wagon over in the other zone, and he just can't kill the damn thing. Even at armor 19, there's no souls over there for him to fuel himself, and Resnick's starting to run out of time. I'm starting to see my dominance in the game, but I'm taking a little too much time, so I start playing a little bit faster and make a few mistakes, but the Mountain King moves up, and I'm never really at threat to die. But Resnick knows that he can only realistically put about 24 to 26, like give or take, damage on average
Hmm.
if he commits to the Mountain King. So he's putting everything he can to get the Mountain King down, like really high value attacks, but not nickel and diming him, so he's not producing a lot of whelps.
Okay.
And so he's waiting, and then he finally gets him down to about 25 HP. He's losing on scenario at this point. He hasn't killed the War Wagon over 3 turns with that freaking jack, and so he commits Resnick to kill the Mountain King, and then backs off with his reposition. He does not kill the Mountain King.
Oh,
And so I basically just get to put the Mountain King, Gristle, and into Resnick, and the game ends at that point. I ended up scoring 3 control points in the end of the game, but my opponent I feel like was pretty confounded by the list, like just didn't know how to chew through the heavy armor and didn't realize how crazy good the War Wagon was.
hmm.
So yeah, there was some pretty good tech there.
No, it's good. Sounds like it was a fun game as well.
It was a fun game. I was starting to hit my stride at that point. The dust had gotten shaken off. I was playing really well, moving along at a good clip. Wasn't really at a threat of blocking myself, and I knew that I could win on scenario regardless, just because the Mountain King clears so much out of zones, and he
Yep.
occupies so much of it that it's hard for him to run things in, around, or past
True.
without incurring free
Three
strikes
strikes,
or
yeah.
dying.
Yeah.
So.
And the War Wagon was staying alive because he was under the stone, right? He was up at armor
Oh yeah,
21.
oh yeah. The stone was right there. Like the stone was in no threat. Like my like I said, I call it the trifecta, right? They're all sort of in this triangle where you know they're going to be under the stone, and the stone's basically no threat because it's about 7 inches behind,
Hmm.
and that's what Gristle can keep it at without really getting herself in personal threat range either. So.
Yeah, my stone placement through I think most of the game was pretty good, except my last game, which hey, I can start talking about that now. So my last
Ooh,
game was another troll player. There was like 6 troll players at this tournament, which was kind of
what a
odd.
surprise!
So and this was Dustin, who's another one of the local guys who and he had a choice between Madrak 2 and Gunbjorn, so he dropped Gunbjorn and I dropped Madrak 2. So his Gunbjorn list was a Mountain King, Dozer and Smig, a Bomber, a unit of Highwaymen, which I had not gone up against before, and some Dunian Knot. So I think that was pretty much his list, and I had my Madrak list. So I was happy with the way this is. He really had to. The one thing in here I thought I was being smart. Sent the long riders along the right flank, just ran them all up around. He had a building that he kept he kept Gunbjorn just beside. So I was running on the other side of the building, going to run them around so he could just come in from behind. And the biggest thing about this is he just said, okay, here's a wall, so you can't come and land on where I am. So I couldn't get the guys in, and then he just kept, in order for me to turn around and get a better charge, or actually be able to get a charge in, he kept throwing like oh, here's a knot that's going to block your way, or here's one guy from the stone that's going to block your way. So he was able to tie up my full unit of long riders by just putting up that stupid wall. So when I play Gunbjorn, I love the wall. When I'm playing against him, not so much. So, but in the end, it was he played it well because he basically tied up those points, and they got next to no value out of the no points back for that investment, which is a bit of a pain.
Yeah. When you're talking about 20 points, you just don't get to work in the list. Like that's pretty brutal.
Yeah. So Madrak, and the one thing, and you know, this is one of those learning things. I'm gonna take it away and I'll remember it, but it was kind of embarrassing at the time. So eventually, I was able to get some damage onto the Mountain King. Was able to get some damage onto Dozer and Smig. I basically gave him Mulg. I did a bad placement, and basically he raged his bomber and Dozer and Smig, and basically took out Mulg in turn. So that was, and I got no value. So there was bad placement on my part. But I wound up feeding, chewed through all the highwaymen, got to the stone, and forgot that self sack basically meant he removed it. So my conga line was removed away from me. So all I could do was go into his Mountain King. Now I went into the Mountain King with Blood Fury up, and I think I had 6 Fury, so I was able to get him down to 4 boxes. So it didn't quite take him out. Next turn, Malk turned around, healed, and then squished me. Now, after the game had ended, we realized, wait a minute, there was grievous wounds on the Mountain King. He couldn't heal, so he really shouldn't have been able to do it. So we rolled out, and the Mountain King did no damage to him. And then we figured he would have had to bring the other one. So we rolled it out to see, and there was just as much of a chance that because the Mountain King was full on Fury, so there was he couldn't transfer anything because I didn't have any. Oh, wait a minute, no, I still had. Did I still have a beast left? No, I still had the Mauler, so I could have transferred to the Mauler. No, I was out of Fury. That's what it was. But in the end, it was a loss, but I put a little asterisk beside it because we didn't quite follow the rules. So, but in the end, it was just a couple bad plays. And it was the at the end of a long day. The game finished around 7:30, so and we got there around 9:30, quarter to 10. So it was a long day, but it was a blast. I enjoy playing. It's the first time I played Dustin, but I've known him for a year or so now. But it was a good game. It was interesting to see because he really knows his trolls very well and was able to get all of his placement exactly where he needed it as well, which was good. But in the end, just remember that self sack will remove that conga line because I could have got in behind the Mountain King and got into the other line and would have been able probably got into this caster if it weren't for the self sack removing those the stone stripes.
Nice. Well, I'm glad you at least had some takeaways from your games. Like
Yep.
learning to I mean, I hesitate to use the word nitpick, but I mean, if you're making only little mistakes, then that's only small errors in your game that you've got to sort of concentrate on.
Hmm.
And then you can focus on the larger strategy. You have goals in mind, and it's speaking to your evolution as a player. Like you've come pretty quickly. You've got a good idea about list design, and I think you're headed on the right track to be a power gamer like the rest of us.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I mean, and to your comment, I mean, there's certain things I did in the game I was really happy with. I was happy with my place with the Fen Blades. I love that unit, and hopefully they survived the errata in January. But I'm
Mm.
I'm happy with my placement. Felt a little bit better about Kithkar because I was a little down on him because I never seemed to get him where he needed to be, but made sure he's in the middle. And I too got Righteous Vengeance on him one turn when they took out something. So all the little minor victories, making sure getting the Chronicler where they need to be, the Fell Caller where he needs to be. So where he's not just giving buffs, he's actually getting into the game as well. So I had things I was trying to focus on, which I was happy with. But again, it's it, there's then when you focus on those, you sometimes forget the other pieces. So, but in the end, I was happy, and right now, and there's a few of us here in my local meta. We're doing the same thing. We're aiming for a tournament a month because there's enough of them in our southern Ontario area. So if I can get in a couple games a week, or if I can get a game a weekend and then 4 games on a weekend, once a month, I'm going to be happy with that. So,
Yeah, that
um,
was pretty close to my frequency when I was in the heyday. Like I'd guaranteed get a game in during the week, and then there'd be at least one or two tournaments a month that I would go to. And that got me to a pretty polished player overall.
Yeah.
One note though, like after this last tournament, there was a model that I was not too certain on, and it was actually the Kithgar. I think he's good, but if you don't already have a Chronicler in the list, I think the Chronicler's value sort of starts to outweigh the Kithgar. Yes, the accuracy for the Fenblades is good, but overall, I feel like Hero Strategy, Tales of Mist, and Charge of the Trolls is far more valuable than just the +1 mat, the Righteous Vengeance, and the Kithgar. And one of the reasons for this was, and this really hurt when Mark III went around, is that the Kithgar lost Unyielding, so he's actually quite easy to kill these days. He used to be a pretty stout 12, 19 under the stone, and then he had the 8 boxes, and he still has 8 boxes, I believe, and he was also still hard, and so it was pretty hard to kill him overall. And now without Unyielding at armor 17, pretty easy to kill if you devote just a few extra points to him.
Yeah.
Whereas he was pretty stout before, which makes me think that with the Chronicler, who's actually not a slouch in combat at power 11 mat 6.
Yep. Agreed.
His calls are probably more worth it than the Kithgar overall, I think.
Well, especially with the amount of shooting out there, even giving their unit the concealment for that first turn, and if they tough, it means you can't shoot them again, which is helpful because that actually came into play a couple times.
Yeah, exactly. It means that you're not losing quite as many, and the tough is less of a downside.
Exactly. And Kithgar is actually 5 boxes now, not 8. So.
Oh, jeez, yeah. So there's another one. He's a little too easy to get rid of for my point cost on him, and I think the Chronicler is a better option. Who's still 5 boxes. Just the lower armor at 12, 14.
Well, ideally you're not running him right up on the front line anyways. You just keep him far enough back.
I've had that mofo kill some really valuable shit late game when your opponent's not paying attention. You're like, shit, that guy's mat 6? What the hell?
Well, he's the only one who was able to kill one of the Void Spirits, so he got some work done on my scoring game, but it was he got killed the next turn. But the one thing I actually didn't, see what happens when you read your card. Hero's Tragedy. I didn't realize that if it's an enemy warrior model that destroys one of the affected models, not just any model. So I had to apologize to Scotty because he had a monstrosity knock me down, which I said, oh no, it's okay, it's Hero's Tragedy, you're knocked down, but apparently it's just that. So. And speaking of rules we got wrong, I think we need to just do a quick clarification on what we did last episode. I think we made a couple comments that we've turned out we're remembering some Mark II rules rather than Mark III rules. So.
Oh yeah, the ride by attack. Yeah, we were totally wrong on that one. Got moved to reposition and then no attack. But I mean, it effectively works the same way. It's just a shorter distance that you get to move. Ride by technically could be anywhere between 0.1 inches to 7 after the fact.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the other one was, I forget what the other one was. Something about the, nope, it's gone.
About the what?
There was 2 things. It was ride by was one of them, and then there was the other one was talking about putting a spell onto one of Gristle's spells, or what are Jarl's spells onto a unit, onto the swarm.
Yeah, it's because I think Jarl's spells are all friendly faction. So.
Oh, okay.
Which is why. I mean, the Gremlin Storm's incorporeal, so that wouldn't come into play. It's stealth, which might come into play. I don't remember the specific context, but we were wrong. It happens. Yep. Probably going to happen again.
Oh, yeah. I can guarantee if I'm on the cast, it's going to happen again.
I mean, just look at it like this. Like, we are not like the Tactica gurus. This is a new edition for everybody. Everybody's still relearning all the rules.
Yep.
And there's going to be some mistakes had. We're just going to give you our opinion, and you can take it with a grain of salt if you want. But some of us have a lot of experience, and our opinions are valuable, maybe. I don't know.
I just like talking about this stuff. I fully admit I don't know nearly as much as everyone else, but I just like talking about the little stuff that I do know.
Yeah. So. Well, at any rate, on that bombshell that we were wrong, this has been the Scrumcast signing off.
Awesome. So
good.
Stop.